What's up, YouTube? Timbers here. Here is my Throwback segment where I talk about the films that turns 10, 20, 30, and 40 this week. And we got some interesting ones here. First up, turning 10 is Kingsman: The Secret Service, which is, of course, the first installment of the Kingsman franchise, which who knows we're ever going to get more in the future. But, I mean, even the last film, Argyle, which, if you guys remember, pretty much, towards the end, it's pretty much confirmed that it took place in the Kingsman world, which that was still a little bit of a twist, but yeah. And that movie, of course, was a flop. The last Kingsman, the one on the prequel one, the Kingsman, didn't do so well. So yeah, I actually did not mind Go to Circle, by the way. So many people trash on that. I actually had a fun time with that one. But anyway, of course, Kingsman starred. Pretty much it was the movie that put Taron Egerton on the map for most people. Obviously, you had Carl Firth in this, Mark Strong, Sam Jackson, Sophia Boutella, Micah Caine. I mean, if you guys don't know much about the first Kingsman, it follows Eggsy, played by Taron Egerton, who is recruited by Harry Hart, played by Colin Firth, into a secret spy organization called Kingsman. And the first Kingsman, I remember seeing that one in theaters. I had a fun time with it. The action is pretty cool. I really quite enjoyed the church fight scene. Of course, remember Family Guy poke fun at that too. That's a pretty fun parody there. But yeah, if you guys never seen the first Kingsman, I'll say give it a go. It's a lot of fun and entertaining. Again, who knows if we're ever getting more Kingsman, but that's what I say. Alright. Also turning 10 is 50 Shades of Grey. Oh boy. Let's just say a risque film here. Of course, it starred Dakota Johnson, who I admit is actually better in this than she was in Man of Web. That's my opinion. But anyway. And of course, here she plays, Anastasia Steele, who of course begins like a relationship with this young businessman, Christian Grey, played by Jamie Dornan, and they of course spark some risque stuff throughout. I mean, this movie was filthy throughout. Yeah, and when I'm talking about filthy, I mean, yeah, pretty filthy throughout here. Yeah, I will say it's not as bad as the sequels. Like the sequels, 50 Shades, Darker, 50 Shades, Free, were both pretty terrible. But I will say this is actually probably the better one in my opinion. I mean, if you guys don't know, 50 Shades is pretty much Twilight fan fiction, so there's that. But yeah, it's still not a good film. But I will say again, I will say it's better than the other ones. So all right, film turning 20 is the Will Smith classic Hitch. Now there is talks that Will Smith is developing a sequel, which pretty cool there. Now of course it stars Will Smith as Will Alex Hitch Hutchison, who's this date doctor who makes a living teaching men how to woo women, and of course you have Kevin James. I always like it's always so funny seeing Will Smith slap Kevin James because he seems to have a habit of slapping people from grown ups. First he slapped Kevin James as this, then years later he will go on to slap Chris Rock. So what is it with him slapping people from grown ups? Beyond me. Surprised he hasn't tried to slap Sandler or Spade or Schneider yet, but I don't know. But yeah, Hitch was still pretty fun. Little like really nice little rom com. Will Smith was pretty good in this. I believe this was actually like one of Kevin James' like first starring role, if I'm not like film role that is. Because of course this was around time where like Kings and Queens had just came to an end and all, and he had like small like little bit parts beforehand. Like he had like a little cameo in 51st Dates and all. But this was actually like the first time he really led a movie, and he actually was pretty good in that. So yeah, it's a really nice little film if you guys haven't seen it. All right. Also turning 20 is Bride and Prejudice, which is the Pride and Prejudice Bollywood film from the director Ben like Beckham. There's also Pooh's Huffalump movie, which is like one of the Winnie the Pooh movies, which other than like Blood and Honey, you don't really see Holly Pooh movies anymore nowadays. Like, remember back in like the 2000s, they used to always crank these out. Whether it was like the Tigger movie, the Piglets movie, and all. And this was actually probably one of my favorites out of the bunch. I used to always watch this tons of times as a kid, and it's a really decent little one. And I cannot wait to see what that Huffalump is gonna look like. If you guys don't know, they're bringing that Huffalump in the Pooniverse. I cannot wait to see how that's gonna look, but we'll see. All right. Also, now turning 30 this week. Oh boy, can't believe this one's turning 30. Is Adam Sandler's classic Billy Madison. Pretty much the movie that really put Adam Sandler on the map. Probably my favorite Adam Sandler movie of all time. It'll always be like Billy Madison is my number one favorite. My number two favorite will always be Happy Gilmore, and of course my number third favorite will always be Big Daddy. Those are just my three favorites out of his. And of course Adam Sandler plays Billy Madison, who has to pretty much go back to school and pass all of his grades, so he could pretty much prove to his father that he could take over his company and all. And this has some really fun cameos by the likes of Chris Farley as a bus driver, Norm Macdonald. It's such a shame that a couple of people in this are sadly no longer with us. R.I.P. Chris Farley, R.I.P. Norm Macdonald. Darren McGavin, who you might know as the father from A Christmas Story. He played Billy's dad in this, R.I.P. Of course, you had Bridget Wilson as Veronica Vaughn. This has just so much memorable lines, some memorable scenes in it. I could watch this thing tons of times when I first saw it. It's an 90s common classic. And you know what? If Happy Gilmore 2 does well, like maybe with critics, with audiences and all, I wouldn't mind seeing Sandler go back to do another Billy Madison. I always wish he did Billy Madison sequel before a Happy Gilmore sequel, but hey, maybe he'll do one. Who knows? But if you guys never seen Billy Madison, do yourself a favor, go watch it. I believe this was actually around a time where Adam Sandler, got fired from SNL, and just think about it. Adam Sandler and Chris Farley both got fired from SNL. Could you ever imagine that? Seriously, they were actually the greatest when it came to SNL back in the days. But anyway, all right. Also, films celebrating their 30th anniversary. We of course got Shallow Grave, which is the Danny Boyle movie. I believe this was actually his first feature, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, this was actually the start of very young Ewan McGregor, Christopher Eccleston, who you might know from Doctor Who fame and all. And it follows a group of flatmates in Einberg who sets off a chain of events after burying this new tenant who died and left behind a large sum of money here. And it's actually a really nice little drill, dark comedy, if you will. Ewan McGregor is pretty good in this. Of course, Danny Boyle, who will go on to direct Slumdog Millionaire, Train Spotting. I mean, he's always been a really terrific filmmaker, and this is not his best work or anything, but it's still a pretty decent one worth giving a go. All right. Also turning 30 is The Quick and the Dead, which is the Sam Raimi directed Western movie starring Leo DiCaprio, Gene Hackman, Sharon Stone, Russell Crowe, and of course this is about it focuses on the lady played by Stone, who's a gunfighter who rises to the frontier town of Redemption, controlled by John Harold, played by Gene Hackman. And it's a really nice little western worth giving a go. DiCaprio, obviously, he would go back to the western genre years, decades later with Django Unchained. Of course, you had Sharon Stone, Gene Hackman was good in this. Really decent film worth giving a go. All right, films turning 40 this week. Oh boy, probably one of the best teen movies of all time, in my opinion. That is, of course, The Breakfast Club. Of course, about a group of teenagers from different high school cliques who serves Saturday detention. I never had detention. I will admit that. I was a good boy when I was in high school, but I always imagined, always having detention and having it seem similar to the Breakfast Club. I adore the Breakfast Club. Directed by the teen icon John Hughes, who was pretty much like very popular with the teen genre back in the '80s. Whether you talk about 16 Candles, uh, he didn't do pretty. Oh, Ferris Bueller, obviously he did. I mean, and of course he had like the Brat Pack of the '80s. You had the likes of Molly Ringwald, John Nelson, Anthony Michael Hall, Emil Estevez, Ali Sheedy. I mean, those were like the quintessential teen actors of the '80s. And they all play their parts very well. It's so memorable. One of the most iconic '80s songs, of course. "Won't You Forget About Me"? I mean, who did not love that song? Of course, lots of movies and shows were gone to parody Breakfast Club. Whether you talk about like Victorious has parodied it, Ted 2 has parodied Breakfast Club, and time to time. It's just one of the most iconic teen movies. It's so memorable. It's just. I mean, if it wasn't for the like I feel like there's been teen movies like before the Breakfast Club, obviously, but I feel like the Breakfast Club really resonated more with the teen genre, and Breakfast Club is just so iconic, man. If you guys never seen that, I should really go find nowadays, but go watch the Breakfast Club. It's just really iconic. All right, now other films turning 40, not really to go by here. There is Turk 182, which stars Robert Eldridge as New York's as New York City firefighter Terry, who is unable to receive a compensation for his injury, and he, of course, and his brother Jimmy, played by Timothy Hutton, attempts to have Mayor Tyler, played by Robert Cope, to intervene here. And it was directed by Bob Clark, who has like one of those weirdest resumes ever. Like the guy actually directed horror movies you know, Black Christmas. He did the teen R-rated comic Porky's, and he also did the Christmas movie A Christmas Story. So I've always found that he had like one of the most oddest resumes ever. But this is not like one of his more memorable films, but it was an okay one. There's also Fast Forward, which was directed by Sidney Poitier. There's also The Bay Boy, which stars Kiefer Sutherland. Lost in America, which is the Albert Brooks movie that turns 40. And there's also Vision Quest, which, by the way, the Vision series, there was word that it was going to be called Vision Quest. I'm so glad it's not being called that because people get confused with the '80s film here. Of course, this movie here starred the likes of Ronnie Cox, Matthew Modine, Linda Fiorentino. Where like Modine plays this high school wrestler who falls in love with an older woman here, and it's not really too memorable to be honest. Here, like I probably only see this maybe once or twice. That's really it. But pretty much the most memorable one in this list is obviously The Breakfast Club. But let me let you guys. Which of the films stand out to you the most? To me, the 10-year one is going to the Kingsman Secret Service. 20-year one is going to Hitch. The 30-year one is Billy Madison. And the 40-year one is, of course, The Breakfast Club. Anyway, drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. This is Tim Simon.